Yeah.
The Board of Certified Advanced Estheticians will now exit executive session and reconvene at 9:42 a.m. No final decisions were made. No votes were taken. In executive session, the public phone lines have been unmuted, and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Shall we? Oh, great. Sammy, go
I
ahead.
was going to jump in here. Heather, thank you for providing that information to the board. So so House Bill 2993 that went in effect or was for 2021 is new, and there's procedurally there's no like roadmap of how we're supposed to do things. So I've already implemented this for 2 of my rulemakings, one with electrology and then one with direct entry midwives. So I do have some experience, but it's an evolving process at this point. But just to kind of give you an idea of how electrology went is they gave me some specific communities that they wanted to be represented. They wanted the transgender community to be represented because people who are seeking gender reassignment surgery need electrolysis, which is considered permanent hair removal. So they thought that was very appropriate. They wanted small business owners, electrology educators, coordinated care organizations, healthcare professional, a person of color or people of color, a licensed electrologist, who's also a community, indigenous people, low income, veterans, consumers, communities of liability and malpractice insurance, private industry insurance, professional organizations, senior communities, and prospective electrologists. Several of those, one person met several of those different communities likely to be affected to represent those communities. So basically, and I kind of have run down in my mind what I think might fit for you guys, but if I'm missing things, by all means, please let me know. I think probably small business, the community of small businesses is important, which may also include medical spas, which may not be licensed under HLO. They may be licensed as maybe surgery centers or through other physicians. I'm not exactly sure. That's something that I'll have to figure out how to look and see if there's associations that are attached to those. So there is some research that's involved. I don't know if, transgender or any of the, bisexual, gay, or that's an important community. Insurance provider communities, medical professionals. Is there a certain community of medical professionals that you want to see represented? The device industry, is there like an overarching, organization that oversees something with devices? Educators for both advanced aesthetics, regular aesthetics, and then maybe even a more advanced type of education. So those are kind of some that are outside of like Black communities, indigenous communities, people of color, veterans, low income. Those are kind of some outside of that box. So if you have some feedback, I'm here to take it. And then I will do my due diligence to reach out and find these people, get notice out to all the licensees, and then I already have a lot of, from doing the other rulemakings, now have a lot of people in my pocket that I can reach out for all the boards, not just for one. I can use it for all of them. So.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Rebecca, go.
Oh, so Sammy, I think that's a great list. I really like including other specialties under that medical spa umbrella, such as like somebody licensed as a surgery center or maybe another physician. I think educators are important. I think also the transgender community is one that does get impacted, possibly bisexual or gay community as well, due to the fact that we do a lot of hair removal. So I really like the list. If you have people at your disposal already that you think might fit some of these bills, including, I would love some feedback for the device industry. I know that, it's hard to find an overall group that works with the device industry. I know we have a couple people on the board that belong to different groups. Perhaps we can get some feedback from them.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's even a thing, but if it is, I could find it. I'll go searching. Is there anything that I listed that you would say, like, is low income a community that you think would be affected by the rule changes in regards to devices for aesthetics and advanced aesthetics? Or veterans?
This is Cubby. I definitely think so. I think that, it could affect the pricing out there. And so I do think they could be affected.
And obviously,
This is Knapp.
Yes.
I agree with the low income. I think they could be affected, but I would also be concerned that if they didn't have certain safety protocols in place, like if they broaden the scope or the field and certain safety protocols weren't in place, the prices could be lower, but the safety could be an issue. So I think for that reason, low income could be affected positively and negatively.
So are you thinking of it in terms of practitioner? And Rebecca, were you thinking it in terms of consumer?
Both, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I think they overlap a bit.
Cubby, I agree with Christy.
Okay.
So David Howe here, I'd throw a question to the board members. What medical practitioners interface with your field that you think would have a place as a part of a Rural Advisory Committee member?
Hi, this is Jamie O'Neill. With me personally, I do work with nurse practitioners who do like Botox injections and PRP and stuff like that. So I do feel like, having representatives that are, kind of work closely with, some of the aesthetic services that we do would be a good idea.
Okay, do you ever have any association with dermatologists?
Oh, yeah.
Or, okay, so I'm thinking in terms of like, physician, dermatologists, or even a radiation oncologist, anything like that?
I do think that would be beneficial, actually.
Okay.
With certain things that we treat as well.
Okay, thank you.
Cubby, I do think we also, work with plastic surgeons as well. But the majority of, I think, the medical spas are working with like nurse practitioners and RNs too, as well as medical assistants, or a lot of them.
Yeah, Knapp here. On some of the rules advisory committees that I've participated in, it was interesting. I think their input is invaluable, and I think that they don't always want to do those services, so they support us, but their input on the safety element is invaluable.
I would concur, Christy. David Howe.
Candidate
Cubby,
Kimberly. Sorry.
Sorry.
I would also concur that I think the input from a medical professional of kind of a related specialty would be highly valuable to the Rules Committee.
Do you guys have any ideas of where I might be able to reach out and find those people? I mean, I'll do the obvious, which is reach out to the Oregon Medical Board and the Oregon Nursing Board and the Oregon Medical Association. But if I know that we license ambulatory surgical centers, and they might be able to do a deep dive on Medi-Spas. I don't know for sure, but I can definitely check into that as part of my research. So, but if you have things off the top of your head, you could tell me now. I will send an email saying, hi, we talked about this. Give me all of your input. I'm just kind of making a general list at this point.
Candidate Kimberly, there are key opinion leaders for the probably all of the industry, like Allergan and Galderma, Mertz. They have people that are already sort of titled as key opinion leaders. They might be available for their opinions.
Kavi, I work with a KOL. He's a plastic surgeon, and he is extremely busy, but I could always reach out to him and see if he'd be interested. I'd like to probably let him know perhaps what the time commitment would be and that sort of thing as well.
Kimberly, were you the one that talked about this, the KOL? I've never heard of a key opinion leader. This is new information for me. We're excited now.
Yes, candidate Kimberly. Yeah, all of the products, I guess, product companies like Allergan, Galderma, Mertz, all of the device companies as well. They all have educators and trainers, and some of them are paid and some of them are not. But yeah, they're considered KOLs or key opinion leaders in the industry. And they might be willing to commit a time, just being part of the companies.
That would be amazing. I might contact you and pick your brain about that a little bit more. And Rebecca, I'll probably do the same for you if that's okay.
Sure, no problem, candidate.
Great.
Yeah, Kavi, that's fine. Kavi, another group that I think should be represented is maybe prospective CAEs. I feel like they potentially could be affected as well.
What was it again, Rebecca?
Prospective CAEs that are wanting to enter into this scope of practice. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'll put that on here. So people who may be, like, say, in a regular aesthetic school but are considering going to advanced aesthetic school.
Correct.
That's definitely doable. I'm assuming you want both licensed or certified advanced estheticians and regular estheticians. That's kind of no-brainers. Is there, I know in some cases I've looked for like different kind of insurance providers, like CCOs probably wouldn't qualify here, but is there another type of like professional liability insurance that we might look at as far as a community, a group, or something like that? And if not, you could say no. It doesn't have to be something. I'm just asking.
Kavi, I don't think that's necessary, but I would love to get feedback from everybody else.
Candidate, I mean, I do think that it might be, because all CAEs are required to carry professional liability. Is that correct?
No.
No?
I don't know. Hold on. I think.
It was my understanding that certified.
NAP here, yes, it is. It definitely is. I think where it gets difficult is their liability insurance comes from all over the country, and I think the insurance providers may not have a vested interest per se in what we're doing. So I think it might be hard to get a party that would participate.
You have to, doesn't say you have to have it. And I mean, we would have to take a deeper dive into this. The law says in adopting rules under subsection 1B of the section, the board shall adopt rules requiring a certified advanced esthetician to maintain client disclosure forms that include at a minimum disclosure of the existence of professional liability insurance. So I don't think that requires them to have it, but I think it requires them to tell people if you do. I believe that's how we've interpreted that in the past.
Kathy, I think it might be hard to identify, you know, which type of insurance companies we would be having on this RAC committee, since it depends on the type of entities too, as to what type of insurances they carry. And I just don't know whether they would be affected by this rule change.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, that's just what I've used for other professions. You don't have to have them all. That one cannot be on there. That's completely fine. And if something comes up during rules advisory committees and we need to pull somebody in, I can always do that as a sidebar, like a subject matter expert about something specific. Like there's no rule saying we can't do that, because there'll be more than one RAC. There'll be several. And so we may have to bring in someone special for different devices or insurance or whatever. So if it's needed, we can pull it in at a separate time. But just for this, in this situation, the communities that we know will likely be affected, I think is how we're looking at it. So I've got, sorry.
How here, two questions for clarification. One is, what's the overlap between the existing CAE board and having representative members on the RAC? Do you see what I'm saying? Is a Rural Advisory Committee independent of the CAE board, or can you have representatives off the CAE board be on the Rural Advisory Committee? First question.
Generally speaking, we like to have board members on the board and RAC members on a RAC, but there have been instances where we've crossed over in certain situations. But generally speaking, RACs are RACs and the board is the board, because the RAC is only making a recommendation and the board actually makes the final decision.
Okay, that's good. First question. And then the second one, what I'd offer myself, having been on the original Rural Advisory Committee to create the board, and I don't know if there's a provision again for an ex officio member on that RAC to provide input, but not necessarily in a voting capacity. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say you can or can't vote. So if there were, say we put somebody from radiation protection on the RAC and a recommendation was made, that you would definitely be able to have that vote. Okay. As that member.
I would offer that.
Do everyone think that having someone from radiation protection, I know it's been helpful in understanding how they license devices and how people get licensed that can use these. I know that's kind of been helpful for me in the past.
Kathy, I feel like working with David Howe for quite many years now, he's been extremely helpful, and whoever he has had there has been really helpful in making sure that we're, you know, keeping in mind all of the safety and, you know, everything that their department has to offer. So I think we should definitely do that.
Okay. I'm just going to rattle off a few more. We said yes to low income veterans. That's one that's come up. I wonder if veterans wouldn't come up maybe under consumers or even under
Kathy,
seniors.
we did have a member of the board in the past who was a veteran. Her name was Christy Russ. I don't know if she'd be interested in, you know, being a part of the RAC or not, but maybe she could represent that sector.
Do you think that community is likely to be affected, the veteran community?
Maybe not any more than, you know, any other community, but what is everybody else's view on that?
Candidate, I think likely not specifically because of being a veteran, more as a consumer, can be included as a consumer perhaps.
Okay. I'll put it, leave consumer and I'll put, just in parentheses, veteran. And, my next question was gonna be senior communities. Would they maybe fall under that same umbrella?
Heavy, I think so. I think we should have an educator in there. I do think educators could be affected.
Yes, I do have educators on here. You can't see my
Okay.
list. I have educator,
Right,
aesthetics, and advanced aesthetics.
right.
So let me just read you what I have on. Okay, I've got communities of transgender, gay and bisexual, and maybe the other ones, but that's just my generality. Small businesses, including med spas, educators in aesthetics and advanced aesthetics, healthcare professionals, which may include dermatologists, plastic surgeons, nurse practitioners, registered nurses, and medical assistants, key opinion leaders who provide training, education on products and devices. And I'll be reaching out to Kimberly and Rebecca about more information on that. Estheticians and advanced estheticians who are currently licensed, Indigenous people, people of color, somebody from the Radiation Protection Agency group, low-income communities, consumers, which may include veterans and seniors. I put professional organizations on here because I'm gonna find some. So I'm thinking I'll be able to find like a nursing association, Oregon Medical Board. Those would all be professional organizations that I'll reach out to, and I'll put those on here.
This is Yvonne Duan. May I add another suggestion on your list? What about a major professional organization such as ASLMS, which stand for American Association for Laser Medicine and Surgery? Because they are the ultimate authority on the new devices on the horizon, and they do large conference and education. They are more open now to a variety of professionals to come into the association. It used to be MD mostly. I'm actually on the recruiting committee for society.
What was it again? Something for
ASLMS is stand for American Society for Laser Medicine and Surgery.
Kathy, that is an excellent group, and it's been very exciting to watch what they're doing. But I work. They would be affected by this, but I'm not sure. But I know there is a lot of different groups, like the Aesthetic Multi-Specialty Society, and there's quite a few different groups. So I wonder how, we would determine that, and if they would be affected by this rule change. But I do think that's an excellent group for sure.
Well, I'm wondering if
Mary Nelson would be the person who actually nominated this year as the board member representing nursing and allied health in the society. She might be somebody.
Mary is?
Yeah, just been nominated to serve 2 years term. I've been a fellow for the society since 2008, served on 5 standing committees on ASLMS. So if we need their opinion, I think Mary and I can help.
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to suggest maybe they wouldn't be affected by what changes in Oregon, but maybe we can utilize them as experts in some of these devices that, like me and Heather, have no idea about. And we want to get an opinion that's kind of a more generic opinion that's not so so focused on Oregon. It's more national, like here's what this device does. So using these groups as subject matter experts rather than actual RAC members. Does that work?
Heavy. I really like that idea because you do get a little worried sometimes with even some of these educators and trainers. They might be a little more biased depending on who they represent. So I do like the idea of having just a society that is just overall of the different modalities, because we know they change so often.
Yeah, when I did the orientation this morning with Kimberly, we were talking about, people only know what they know. And if that's all that they know, are they an expert? Well, that's all. So it would be nice to have a professional organization. And Heather and I talked about this several times over COVID, like having some time to go out and kind of talk to these people generally and asking, but of course I never had any time for that. But yeah, I think this would be a great opportunity to utilize them as a subject matter expert rather than a community to be affected by the rule changes. Everybody okay with that?
Kennedy, I think that sounds great.
Okay, perfect. And then is there geographic seems like might be important. Communities and like rural communities. Would that be would they be affected? Talk.
Coming from a rural community, maybe not anymore, but I do think so, because, for a long time we've talked about, even the possibility of like education in these smaller communities. So there's probably quite a few smaller communities that they should be represented.
Okay, that's all I kind of have on my list. If there's other ones that you guys can think of, otherwise, you guys can vote. Just basically move on this list that I read out, and then make a second, and we'll go from there. Just before you do that, the schedule. The Board of Cosmetology is going to do this exact same thing on November 14th. I'm going to give them the information that you've provided and see if they think there's extras that need to be on there, or if they're okay with just moving forward with what you guys decided. Other than that, everything is moving ahead. After that November 14th meeting, I'll start recruiting for RAC members.
Knapp here. So do you need a motion to
Yes.
approve that? Okay,
Yes.
do we have a motion to approve that list?
Kathy, I make a motion to approve that list.
To approve the list of communities likely to be affected for the Rules Advisory Committee.
Yes, to approve the list that are likely to be affected by the Rules Advisory Committee.
Kennedy,
have a
I
second?
second that motion.
Great, we'll take a vote. If you are in agreement, say yay. If you disagree, say nay. Rebecca Covey.
Yay.
Kimberly Kennedy.
Yay.
Yvonne Duan.
Yay.
Jamie O'Neill.
Yay.
And Christy Knapp. Yay.
Okay, that's all that I have right now. Yvonne, do you have to go at 10?
Yes, I have 2 patients waiting right now.
Okay, so a couple things that there isn't anything this is the only things you guys had to do today. The rest of the information is just information that we would just report out on, the statistics and how many cases are open and closed. We already went over board membership pretty much with Bob. We're pretty much open for with COVID. And then just a memo that I sent out a long time ago to everybody. That's all we really are going to talk about. I don't know. Is there anybody on the phone? Yes, anyone on the phone?
No, 2 on the phone.
Okay. What do you want me to do?
Well, if we're out of quorum, we can do it.
Mary, did you have comments to make?
Sammy, quorum for the meeting is if we have 5. Would we still have 5 after the individual board member leaves?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
think we have 5 right with Yvonne.
I can talk real fast. I think Aslans is an excellent option because they're impartial when it comes to equipment. So I think that's a nice option because you're not going to get biased opinions, although you may get some personal biased opinions. And I think that an insurance person would be valuable, a liability insurance person would be valuable, because ultimately you may approve a rule, but if they can't get insurance for what the treatment is that they want to perform, that's going to be a problem. So having an insurance perspective and whether they could whether a practitioner could get liability insurance. There, done talking. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay.
And is there someone else? Shannon, did you have something? And then the only other thing under public comment was a letter that Deborah Masten provided to the board back in November of 2021 regarding biologic PRP from a blood draw and skin treatment within the scope of practice of advanced aesthetics. That is something that we don't know and would have to be looked at through legal advice. I'm sure it will come up during the rules advisory committees, and so we won't have an answer to that. We'll just keep moving forward with all the other rule stuff and looking at devices and procedures that fall within either scope of practice. Other than that, if you're okay with not going through each like line by line on the statistics, that's kind of all we had.
Nap here. I have one very quick question.
Mhm.
Things like the PRP, things like the liability insurance, I think these are all really big concerns that we should be addressing. How do we as a board move forward on this when we don't have very many meetings? Is this something we give to the RAC and say we want these items discussed?
Well, I guess it depends on it. So you want to know if PRP is in scope of practice of advanced aesthetics?
I think my question is more like we should discuss whether it's safe, not safe, what parameters we have around it, as well as insurance parameters, as well as a million other things. Is that something the RAC will be talking about, or is that something we should do and we don't have enough meetings to really get that done?
Insurance, and if it's not required, we don't have a law that says this is the type of insurance you have to have. So it'd be hard to write rules around insurance that's not required. So I think maybe I would need more. I mean, usually if there's a procedure and we don't know if it falls in the scope of practice, that's kind of the first question. Does your law and what your scope is written in the law allow for this procedure or this device or whatever it is? That's kind of the first question. And then if it does, what are the safety parameters around that? And then you could further go on to ask about the insurance stuff, but I don't know how you would factor that in with your guys' law since it's not required, but only required to notify consumers if you have it. So this is definitely something that I can put it on for the next. I think this is on the list to talk about in the RACs. So I just don't know if it's going to be specific to liability insurance, but more like, is this in the scope of practice? And if so, what are the parameters around safety for it?
No,
Kevy, I do have a question. So should we perhaps revisit the insurance, being the insurance group or being represented on RAC due to the fact that it was brought up that, obviously if we do probably want to have our licensees insured in case anything happens, and we want to make sure that that's available to them.
Well, I think that if it comes up in the RAC and I need to call on a subject matter expert in the insurance industry, maybe that's the right time to use someone like that. But I think overall, generally, is that community going to be affected? Probably not, but I might need them as a subject matter expert.
Okay. Kathy, I just want to take a quick second to thank all of these new board members. We're very excited to have you so that we can move forward. And I am open to additional meetings if needed as well.
Now, thank you. I agree, Rebecca. Shall I adjourn the meeting so that Yvonne can get to her patients?
Yeah, since we already did public comment, and Shannon, you don't have anything? Assuming she does not. And we addressed Mary's and we addressed Deborah's. Yes, adjourned.
Okay, the Board of Certified Advanced Esthetician meeting is adjourned at 10:17 a.m.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Have a great week.